Some things feel like scenes straight out of a soap opera, but I swear on my white hair, this one was real. Or almost. Because sometimes life exaggerates on purpose, just to see if we still believe in miracles. It was late afternoon, the kind of sky that paints itself in shades of goodbye. And there she was, Isadora Montebello. A name fit for royalty, a scent to wealth, hair always straight even without wind, nails done even when she cried. Millionaire, paraplegic, cold as porcelain in a display case. She lived alone in a mansion that looked more like a luxury hotel with the soul of a cemetery. Since the accident that left her in a wheelchair, she hadn't spoken to anyone. And if she did, it wasn't with her heart, only with contracts, only with the cutting tone of someone who got used to commanding, never being touched. But that day, a flower showed up, not in a vase, in the dirty hand of a boy, a poor boy, barefoot, wearing a T-shirt that had once belonged to someone who had once been forgotten. He walked through the slightly open gate with the face of someone unsure if it was heaven or a trap. He held a flower, crushed and sweaty, crooked but alive, red as bleeding hope. "Miss, this is for you." Isadora looked at him like she was staring at a cracked window, a reflection she didn't want to see. But something in his eyes held her. Or was it his voice? Or the way he held the flower, as if he were holding his own heart? Why are you giving me this?" she asked, with a voice that hadn't asked anything in a long time. "Because you look sad, and my grandma used to say flowers chase sadness away, even when your legs don't want to walk anymore." Silence. It was a silence that screamed, because it was the first time in years Isadora heard someone speak to her without asking for anything. No flattery, no contracts, just a flower and truth. And it was there at that gate that a wall began to crack, a crack in pride, a doubt in the past, a shiver down a spine she thought couldn't feel anymore. Because that boy had something in his eyes, something that reminded her of someone she thought she'd lost forever. And that's where the secret begins, because no flower shows up out of nowhere, especially if it grows through concrete. "What's your name?" she asked, now with the flower trembling in her hand. "Gabriel." Isadora narrowed her eyes. Gabriel. That was my brother's name. But she didn't have a brother. At least that's what she'd been told her whole life. Yeah, life loves planting doubt in places where nothing's supposed to grow anymore. And what she'd uncover next would dig up more than just a secret. It would dig up who she truly was. After that day, Isadora couldn't sleep right anymore. It wasn't insomnia. It was restlessness. The boy's face, the way he said Gabriel, the crooked flower, it all stuck to her like an old perfume, hard to wash off even after a shower. She tried to follow protocols, told the guard to tighten security at the gate, asked the housekeeper to ignore any kids from the street, did what she always did, pretended it was nothing. But that nothing had already rooted, and it was starting to grow inside. 2 days later, he came back. Same time, same worn-out shirt, same flower in hand. "Miss, you didn't put the flower in water. It's wilting on the floor." Isadora pretended not to hear, but the flower was still there, fallen, right next to the ramp by her wheelchair, and Gabriel was right. It was wilting like a poorly kept secret. "Where do you live, boy?" "Back there, behind the old warehouse, with my grandma." "And your father?" "Never met him. They say he disappeared. My mama, I never met her either. But my grandma says my story didn't start here. It started with a rich woman, but a sad one." Silence. That sentence hit like a slap to a drowsy face. Isadora swallowed hard. Rich woman, but sad. That was her. But it couldn't be. It just couldn't be. Still, that night, deep into the silence of the house, Isadora got up. Not with her legs, but with her soul. She went to a forgotten drawer in her closet, the one she had sworn never to open again. There, among old letters and a tiny pair of baby shoes, there was a photo. Faded, black and white, but clear enough. It was her, younger, holding a newborn in her arms. And in the background, a woman with strong eyes, the same woman who was fired and swore she'd never come back. The former cook, the one who vanished without a goodbye, the one who used to say, "That baby will teach you to walk even if your legs don't want to anymore." Isadora trembled. The image, the baby, the disappearance, it all made sense, or made none at all, because that baby, she believed he had died. But what if he hadn't? What if the pain she buried so deeply had survived and was now bringing flowers to her gate? Yeah, the past has a habit of walking barefoot. It shows up without a sound, and before you know it, it's already inside. Next day, she didn't wait for the boy to show up. She sent the driver to circle the block slowly, windows down. She didn't know what she was looking for, but she knew what she felt. A fear made of both longing and shame. And there he was, Gabriel, sitting on the sidewalk with a small plastic container full of wildflowers. "Boy, get in. I want to talk." He got in the car with the ease of someone who has nothing to hide and the boldness of someone who might have a lot to reveal. Back in the mansion's living room, Isadora tried to keep a stern tone. "Your grandmother, what's her name?" "Maria das Dores Montero, but she hates being called her full name, just Doña Dores." Montero. Her own last name. Isadora froze inside but kept her face composed. "Is your grandmother on your mother's or father's side?" "She says she's just grandma. Doesn't matter the side, only the love." Gabriel spoke like a grown man, but had that half-child, half-old soul kind of air, like someone who carried more story than age. "And your mother, do you remember anything about her?" "Just a scent and a song. That one that goes, 'Hush, little baby, the boogeyman will get you.' He hummed it softly, with a distant look, as if remembering from the womb." That's when Isadora's breath faltered. That lullaby, that melody, she'd sung it herself, the night she held her baby in her arms for the last time. But no one knew that. No one. Except him? She pushed herself up from the chair, leaning on her arms as if the world weighed more than it should.
You, you are born here, in this house? Gabriel frowned. I think so. Grandma Dora says this used to be our home before everything went wrong, before they blamed you for something that wasn't your fault. That hit like a molten lead down her spine. Blamed me? They said they accused you, said you abandoned a baby, but it was a lie, that you only did what they told you, that they took 'em from you. Isadora collapsed back into the chair, not just a wheelchair, but into herself. 'Cause that story, she knew it, only with a different ending. An ending that had been invented. A lie.
Isadora spent the night wide awake. Sitting on the porch, dry flower in hand, she stared at the sky like someone searching for answers in constellations. But what she wanted wasn't poetry. It was proof. Because her heart, poor thing, already believed, but her mind demanded confirmation. The next morning, she did the unthinkable. She sent a discreet message to Donna Doris asking her to come to the mansion. Alone. She arrived with short steps and a look that mixed fear and relief. So, you found out? Isadora didn't answer. She just pointed to the armchair. Donna Doris sat down, adjusted the scarf on her head, and looked straight into the eyes of her former employer. He's yours. Silence. The kind that sounds like shattering glass. But how? Isadora's voice trembled, dragged through decades of pain. It was your mother, Donna Carmen. When the baby was born, they said he had died, but I heard the cry. I saw him. And when you passed out after the C-section, she ordered the baby to be taken away. Said you couldn't raise a child without a father, especially not one from a driver. The driver? Yes, Samuel. That young man. You fell in love with him, remember? It was a silent scandal. She said she'd protect your name, your inheritance, but the cost was too high. She covered her mouth. Tears streamed down for the first time in years, but quietly, as if they'd been crying inside her all along. And you, why didn't you tell me? Nana Doris lowered her eyes. Fear. She threatened me, gave me money to disappear, but I couldn't abandon the boy. I took him, raised him the best I could, with garden flowers and prayers on my lips. And now, it's up to you. Isadora said nothing. More than the truth, what hurt was the silence, the years stolen by omission. And there, in that room full of expensive furniture and moldy memories, she made a decision. She had a strand of Gabriel's hair collected, discreetly, and hers too, sent them to a private lab, confidential, fast. And in the sealed envelope that arrived 2 days later was the answer she already knew, but needed to read in cold letters to let her pride surrender. Match 99.9%, maternity confirmed. Gabriel was her son. The son they said had died. The son torn from her arms without goodbye. The son who now picked wildflowers to heal a sadness he himself inherited. But what would she do with that truth? Would she tell him, claim him, or let time bury it all again? Yeah, the next decision wasn't genetic. It was moral. And the world doesn't always forgive a rich mother who lost her child and kept smiling in magazine covers. Isadora had always been a symbol of power. Magazine covers, society columns, a woman who lost the use of her legs, but never her posture. But now she trembled. It wasn't the cold, it was her conscience waking up. She made a decision. She called Gabriel to the back garden, the one that no one ever went to. He arrived holding a new flower, white, as if he somehow sensed that today would be different. Gabriel, I need to tell you something. He widened his eyes. Are you mad? Did I do something wrong? She shook her head, trying to hold back the emotion. No, my son. And when she said my son, her voice broke. Gabriel frowned. What? I said, my son. His eyes widened like the world had collapsed in slow motion. You're my mother? She nodded, tears sliding down slowly, unhurried, as if each drop washed away a year of absence. Gabriel stepped back. But Grandma said that they lied to me too. They made me believe you had died. They stole you from me. He looked at the ground, then at the flower in his hand, and then at her. So that means I'm the son of a millionaire. She laughed, a sad laugh. No, you're the son of a woman who was deceived, and of a love they didn't let exist. Silence. Gabriel slowly stepped forward, as if walking on glass. He rested his head on her lap, and for the first time, Isadora felt the weight of motherhood. Not as guilt, but as reunion. It was beautiful. But it didn't last long. The next week, the news leaked. Scandal in the Montebello family. Millionaire woman claims child with former driver after 12 years of secrecy. The press pounced like vultures on fresh meat. Board members, business partners, cousins, everyone wanted to know, is it true? Is this a scam? That boy just showed up for the money. She must be unwell. Poor thing, she hasn't been the same since the accident. A family lawyer even suggested, Isadora, if you want, we can annul this. Say it was a setup, that the DNA test was tampered with. She looked at him with the kind of contempt only someone who almost died inside can show. You think this is about money? It's about reputation. She rose from her chair, firm, dignified, almost standing. My reputation isn't worth more than the hug I received this week. And she kicked the lawyer out of the room. But the fight was just beginning, because the name Montebello wasn't just a last name, it was an empire. And empires hate cracks, especially when they come from love. The news spread like wildfire on dry straw, in elite circles, in tennis club gossip groups, in the Montebello ladies' tea salons. Certainly everyone had an opinion. A child with a driver? That's soap opera trash. It's probably a scam. That boy just showed up for the money. She must be unwell. Poor thing, she hasn't been the same since the accident. Isadora heard every jab without replying. But it hurt, as if every word carried a thorn. Even inside her home, poison seeped through. The housekeeper who had worked for her for 20 years quit. With all due respect, Miss Isadora, I can't be part of this farce. She swallowed her tears and simply said, the door's over there. Close it on your way out. But what hurt most was Gabriel. He started to change, became quieter, more withdrawn. It wasn't shame. It was fear. Mom, people look at me differently now. They follow me in the street. They insult my grandma. They don't know anything, my love. Yes, they do. They know I don't belong in this world. She held his face in both hands. You belong in my world. But deep down, she knew her world was never made to welcome someone who smelled of truth. Gabriel started avoiding the mansion, stayed more with Donadoras in the small back room, played with the stray dogs, drew, sang softly. But he didn't smile like before. Then one night, Isadora walked into his room, empty. On the bed, a note, written with crooked but strong letters. Mom, I love you, but I think I'm the mistake you tried to fix. I don't want to be a burden or a shame. I'm going to live somewhere no one knows me. Gabriel. She collapsed to the floor. Not because of the wheelchair, because of her soul. And there, in the silence of the night, she screamed. Not the boy's name, her own. Forgive me, Isadora. It was the first time she called herself by her full name. No title, no wealth, no lie. Just her. A woman who lost a son twice. And this time, by his own choice. Days passed with no news, no voice, no color in the house. Isadora stopped eating, stopped working, even stopped looking at herself in the mirror. She asked for only one thing every night before sleeping. Keep him safe. That's all, even if it's far from me. Meanwhile, Donadores searched the city for her grandson. Markets, churches, parks, underpasses. She carried a crumpled photo, a bit of coffee in a thermos, and hope. His heart's too good to be lost for real, she'd say. But time went by, and nothing. Until one day, the mansion's phone rang. It was a nurse from a public hospital in the North Zone. Good afternoon. Is this Isadora Montebello? Yes. There's a boy here asking for his mother. He said his name is Gabriel and that you'll recognize him by the flower. Isadora nearly dropped the phone. She took a deep breath and told the driver, "Start the car, now." When they arrived, the hospital felt like another world. Peeling walls, people lying on the floor, the smell of old alcohol mixed with raw hope. She moved through the hallways like someone breaking into their own past. And there, on a makeshift gurney, was him, Gabriel, with his arm in a cast and a paper flower on his lap. "You found me," he whispered with a faint smile. Isadora kneeled beside the bed, even with her wheelchair locked behind her. "I'll never lose you again. Never," he explained with effort. "They tried to steal my backpack. I ran, fell, got hurt, but I asked them to call you." She cried. "Why did you run away, son?" "Because I thought you'd be happier without me." She interrupted him. "Happiness only began the day you called me Mom." Silence. And there, beside that gurney, she did something she hadn't done since the accident. She tried to stand. She pushed with her arms. Her legs responded with just a slight twinge, but it was enough. The doctor beside her widened his eyes. You felt that?" She nodded. "My son is alive. Of course I felt it." Because sometimes the miracle doesn't come to the legs. It comes to the soul. With Gabriel recovering, Isadora made another unexpected decision. She filed a lawsuit, not for revenge, but for dignity. She requested the reopening of the case surrounding her childbirth, summoned former family employees, asked for footage, records, documents, and medical exams. And the hardest part, she summoned her own mother, Don Carmen Montebello, to testify. The matriarch, the woman who had always been the symbol of power but now trembled at the sound of the name Gabriel. The hearing was scheduled, discreet yet tense. In court, Isadora appeared in public with her son for the first time. Hand in hand, she wore a simple dress. He wore a white shirt and a paper flower in his pocket. When Dona Carmen entered the room, the silence was sharp. The judge requested objectivity, but what followed was stronger than any legal statement. "Do you confirm that on August 3rd, 2013, you authorized the illegal handover of a newborn to the employee Maria das Dores?" asked Isadora's lawyer. Dona Carmen tried to keep her composure. "I did what I thought was best for my daughter. She didn't have the emotional structure to raise a child out of wedlock, especially with an employee. That would have destroyed our reputation." Isadora stood up. "The end of your reputation was the beginning of my grief." The judge asked her to remain calm, but no one moved. Gabriel sat in silence, looking straight ahead, not with hate, but with a serenity only those who slept on the floor and woken up in a warm lap can carry. Dona Dores was also called, and she confirmed everything.
I raised the boy with love, but I never lied to him, always told him the truth would come knocking one day. In the end, the judge had no choice. He ruled that Gabriel be officially recognized as Isadora's legitimate son. He ordered an investigation into Dona Carmen's actions, including identity concealment and document fraud. The room exhaled. But the most powerful moment came right after. As Isadora left the courthouse, she stood in front of the cameras and said, "The world taught me to hide, but my son taught me to show. Today I have no fear, no shame. I have a name, and now I have roots." Gabriel smiled and clutched the paper flower in his pocket. But official justice is only part of the story, because a mother's heart still needed forgiveness. After the hearing, Isadora didn't want to return to the mansion. That was a house, not a home. She chose to rent a modest little house instead, with a porch, a yard, and a window facing the street. Far from the Millionaire neighborhood, far from society columns, but close to something she had never truly felt: peace. Gabriel now slept in a room with posters he chose himself. On nightstand, a new paper flower each week, and in a frame, the sentence he scribbled in the notebook: "Here lives a new beginning." Isadora traded her jewels for mint leaves on the windowsill, and her wheelchair for daily physical therapy. Doctors said there were no guarantees she'd walk again. But her body wasn't the same. She started feeling tingles, then light spasms. Until one day during therapy, as she tried to stand with Gabriel's help, she felt her feet firm. "Mom, you're standing," he shouted, almost in disbelief. She trembled, not from fear, from gratitude. "It was you, son. You made me rise." Because what didn't come from the spine bloomed from her willpower, and her will was to live with him. But something was still missing. Or rather, someone. Donadores, the one who held it all together when everyone else let go. Isadora went back to the old neighborhood. Alone, she knocked on the door of the little blue house and waited. When the elderly woman opened it, her eyes filled with tears. "Isadora." "No, you can call me just Isa, if you still want to." Donadores smiled so wide it barely fit on her face. "Want some coffee?" "Yes, please, and if you've got some comfort, I'll take that too." They embraced in the middle of the kitchen like sealing a pact without words. Because forgiveness is sometimes just that: a warm coffee and the courage to return. From then on, they formed what they called their trio: mother, son, and soul grandmother. Together, they launched a project called Roots of Care, a community center for children without birth certificates, without homes, without a recognized story. If I couldn't care for my own, then let me help other mothers not lose theirs, Isadora said at the opening speech. And there in that small hall, painted with donated paint, with flowers in the windows and the smell of fresh bread, a new Montebello was born. Not of blue blood, but of a red heart.
Months went by. The simple house began to bloom with life. Gabriel grew, and with him, the sparkle in Isadora's eyes grew too. She was no longer the woman in the wheelchair, nor the cold heiress of Montebello. She was just a mother, and that was enough. On sunny days, she watered the plants beside her son. On rainy days, she listened to her favorite songs while he drew on the living room floor. "Mom, do you think flowers feel pain when someone steps on them?" "Yes, son, but some flowers bloom even from the shoe that crushed them, because life had left scars, but now it had become a flower." On Gabriel's birthday, Isadora baked a simple cake filled with dulce de leche and a messy whipped cream topping. He cried, "It's the best cake of my life!" When it came time to blow out the candle, he made a wish. "I want the whole world to know I exist." Isadora smiled.
and said, "Then let's tell your story." And they did. They recorded videos, published letters, took the Roots of Care project to schools, to shelters, to mothers who'd lost their voices, and to children still dreaming of being seen. And the most beautiful part? In one of the project's first classes, a little girl named Leah, 6 years old, handed Gabriel a drawing. It was him, and beside him, a woman in a blue dress. In the caption, just 3 words, "My future brother." Isadora hugged them both and knew, in that moment, that she had planted the right flower in the right soil. And the old Montegello mansion? It's still there, but empty, with shuttered windows, stuck doors, and too much silence. Meanwhile, Issa's new home has something different by the door. A wooden plaque, hand-carved, that reads, "Truth lives here." And I ask you, how many lies do we accept just to keep up appearances? And how many truths do we need to rediscover to finally live? Yeah, they say life is short. But when you find someone who looks into your eyes and sees even your broken parts, life becomes long. It becomes beautiful. It starts to taste like a flower.